I used to have a disaster of a balcony. Seriously, every plant I brought home with these grand ambitions of fresh herbs and beautiful flowers would, within weeks, shrivel into a sad, brown, crunchy version of its former self. My balcony wasn't a lush oasis. It was a plant graveyard, a constant reminder of the time and money I was just wasting. It was so frustrating and honestly a little embarrassing. I was totally convinced I was born without a green thumb. But after years of failures, and I mean years of destroying countless innocent plants, I finally figured it out. It wasn't about some magical innate ability. It was about a few simple, crucial steps I was getting completely wrong. These 5 steps transformed my space from that sad-looking balcony into a thriving garden, bursting with food and flowers. So, in this video, I'm going to share those 5 steps with you, the things I truly wish I knew sooner, so you can skip all the frustration and get straight to the joy of a beautiful, successful container garden. The first and arguably most important step, and the one that's so easy to mess up, is choosing the right container. I know it sounds basic, but this is exactly where my journey of plant homicide began. I'd go to the store and pick the cutest pot, a beautiful glazed ceramic one or a rustic-looking terracotta pot, without a single thought for the plant that was supposed to live in it, and that was mistake number 1. What I wish I knew sooner is that 2 things matter more than anything else: size and drainage. Let's talk size. I used to buy these adorable little pots thinking they were perfect for a small herb or a single flower. But small containers are a beginner's trap. They dry out incredibly fast, especially on a sunny or windy day. I was having to water them constantly, and if I forgot just once, the plant was toast. The rule I live by now is to always choose a container that's bigger than you think you need. A larger pot holds more soil, which means more moisture and nutrients. It gives your plant's roots room to grow and gives you a much bigger margin for error. As a general guideline, for something like a tomato or a pepper, you want at least a 5-gallon container. For most herbs and leafy greens, a pot that's at least 8 to 12 inches deep and wide will work great. The second non-negotiable is drainage. I can't stress this enough. Your pot must have holes in the bottom. I made the classic mistake of planting in a decorative pot without drainage, thinking, oh, I'll just be careful not to overwater. Yeah, I was wrong. Without drainage holes, any excess water just sits at the bottom, creating a swampy mess that drowns the roots and leads to root rot, which is a one-way ticket to a dead plant. Now, if you fall in love with a pot that doesn't have holes, don't despair. You can almost always drill your own. A masonry bit works for ceramic, and a regular bit works for plastic. And please, ignore that old advice to put a layer of rocks or gravel at the bottom for drainage. It's a total myth. It actually makes things worse by creating a false bottom where water gets trapped, keeping the roots wet and doing way more harm than good. Your plants need soil from top to bottom. Trust me. All right, so you've got the perfect pot. The next step, and this is where I made my second giant mistake for years, is what you fill it with. For the longest time I thought, dirt is dirt. I just scoop some soil out of my parents' backyard, fill up my pots, and call it a day. The result? My pots would turn into solid, compacted bricks. Water would either run right off the top or sit there forever, and the plant roots literally couldn't breathe or grow. What I wish I knew sooner is that you should never, ever use garden soil in your containers. Garden soil is just too dense and heavy. In the ground, it has a whole ecosystem of worms and microbes to keep it loose, but in a pot, it just suffocates your plants. The solution is to use a high-quality potting mix. This isn't just dirt. It's a specially formulated, lightweight blend made just for containers. It usually has stuff like peat moss, perlite, or vermiculite. These ingredients are brilliant because they do 2 things perfectly. They hold on to moisture so your plants don't dry out instantly, but they also allow for great drainage and airflow, which is critical for healthy roots. Spending a few extra bucks on a good quality potting mix is one of the best investments you can make for your container garden. It's the foundation of your plant's entire life. To take it a step further, I now like to supercharge my potting mix. Even a good bag can be made better by mixing in some organic compost. This adds a ton of vital nutrients and beneficial microbes. It's like giving your plants a healthy, balanced diet right from the start. And a quick note on picking plants. Try to pair the right soil with the right plant. When you're just starting, look for varieties described as dwarf, bush, or compact. They've been bred for container life and are much more forgiving. Also, if you're putting multiple plants in one pot, make sure they're compatible. It's tempting to create a beautiful arrangement, but check that they have similar needs for sunlight and water. Otherwise, one will always struggle while the other takes over. You have the right pot and the perfect soil. Now comes the fun part, planting. But even here, a few simple techniques I learned made a world of difference. It's not just about digging a hole and dropping the plant in. My old method was to cram as many plants as I possibly could into one pot, hoping for that instant, lush, overflowing look. What I got instead was a desperate battle for survival, where none of the plants really thrived. They were all competing for light, water, and nutrients, and most of them ended up stunted or just died off. What I wish I knew sooner is that proper spacing is key, even in a container. When you're at the nursery, look at the plant tag. It'll tell you how big the plant is expected to get. Give them that space. A great design trick is to place taller plants in the center and shorter or trailing plants around the edges. That way, everyone gets their moment in the sun. The next thing is caring for the roots. When you gently slide a plant out of its nursery pot, you might see a dense, tangled mass of roots. This is called being root-bound. If you plant it like that, the roots will just keep circling, struggling to spread out into all that nice new soil you gave them. I used to just plop this tangled mess right into the pot. Now I know to gently loosen them up. You can just tickle the bottom of the root ball with your fingers, or even make a few small vertical cuts with a clean knife. This encourages the roots to grow outward into their new home. You want to be gentle, but don't be afraid to break them up a little bit. Finally, the most critical part of planting day is to water thoroughly right after you plant. I don't mean a little sprinkle. Water until you see it freely running out of those drainage holes at the bottom. This does two really important things. It helps settle the soil around the roots, getting rid of any air pockets, and it makes sure the entire pot is evenly moist, which encourages the roots to grow down deep instead of staying near the surface. This one deep watering sets your plant up for success from day one. This is it. This is the step that separates the thriving gardens from the plant graveyards. For me, watering was a constant source of anxiety. Did I do it too much? Too little? My plants were either drowning in my affection or withering from my neglect. And fertilizer? I barely even thought about it. The biggest lesson I wish I knew sooner is that consistency is everything, and there's a super simple way to check if your plants are thirsty. Here it is. Don't water on a schedule. Water when the plant actually needs it. The foolproof method is the finger test. Just stick your finger about an inch or two into the soil. If it feels dry, it's time to water. If it feels moist, leave it alone. It's that simple. This one habit saved me from both overwatering and underwatering. When you do water, water deeply. A light surface sprinkle is the worst thing you can do. It just encourages shallow roots and doesn't get water down where it's needed most. Instead, water slowly until you see it running out of the drainage holes. This ensures the entire root zone is saturated and also helps flush out any built-up salts from fertilizers. And remember, containers dry out way faster than garden beds, especially in the heat of summer, so you'll probably need to check them every day. Now for the second part, feeding. I used to think the soil had everything the plant needed, but in a container, plants are in a closed system. They use up the available nutrients pretty quickly, and every time you water, some of those nutrients wash right out the bottom. Skipping fertilizer was like expecting a person to run a marathon on a single breakfast. It just doesn't work. The easiest way to handle this is a two-part approach. When you first plant, mix a slow-release granular fertilizer right into your potting soil. This will provide a steady, low-level supply of food for several weeks or even months. Then, during the peak growing season, supplement that with a diluted liquid fertilizer every 2 to 3 weeks. Think of it as giving your plants a regular vitamin boost. This consistent feeding is what gets you those abundant flowers and a huge harvest of veggies. My final mistake was thinking that once the plant was in the pot, my job was done. I'd let my flowers bloom once and then just watch as they got all leggy and sad, or I'd leave spent vegetable plants to wither away in the pot. What I wish I knew sooner is that a little bit of regular maintenance is the secret to keeping your garden looking great all season long. The first and honestly most rewarding task is deadheading. This just means pinching or cutting off flowers as soon as they start to fade. When you do this, you stop the plant from putting all its energy into making seeds and redirect that energy back into producing more flowers. It's like giving your plants a quick haircut, and it keeps them looking tidy and encourages them to bloom over and over. The same goes for pruning. Don't be afraid to trim your plants. For herbs like basil, regularly pinching off the top sets of leaves will make the plant grow bushier and way more productive. For vining plants, a little trim can keep them from getting totally out of control. Regular pruning helps maintain a good shape and promotes healthy new growth. Finally, have a plan for troubleshooting. Keep an eye out for pests. The great thing about container gardens is that problems are usually contained and much easier to manage. If you see some aphids, you can often just blast them off with a sharp spray of water. And at the end of the season, don't just leave old dead plants in their pots. Pull them out and toss them in your compost pile. For perennials that might not survive the winter in a pot, you can try moving them to a protected spot like a garage. And it's a great habit to clean your empty pots with a simple solution of 1 part bleach to 9 parts water. This kills any lingering diseases and ensures you have a clean, healthy start for your garden next year. These 5 steps completely changed my gardening experience. It took me from a serial plant destroyer to someone who confidently grows both food and flowers right on my balcony. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. What's the biggest container gardening mistake you've ever made? Or what's the one tip you wish you knew sooner? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one and we can all learn from each other. And please also make sure to subscribe to our channel for more great gardening tips. So, to quickly recap the 5 steps. 1. Choose a big container with great drainage. 2. Always use a quality potting mix, never dirt from the ground. 3. Plant with purpose by giving your plants space and loosening their roots. 4. Master your watering with the finger test and remember to feed your plants regularly. And 5. Keep things looking great with a little deadheading and pruning. It really is that straightforward. You don't need a magical green thumb, you just need to get these fundamentals right. By avoiding the same mistakes I made, you can save yourself so much time, money, and frustration. You can absolutely create a beautiful, thriving container garden, no matter how small your space is. Thanks so much for watching and happy gardening.